All right, I think our speakers are ready, and I would like to welcome them once again, and everybody who is joining today's discussion. My name is Asya Metodieva, and I'm a visiting fellow at the German Marshall Fund. Today, as I said, we're going to talk about the political situation in Bulgaria, which has been extremely interesting in the past couple of years. But the reason why we're having this discussion today is that Bulgaria held 2 rounds of municipal elections. The first one was at the end of October, and the second one just last Sunday on November 5th. The election has brought up questions about the stability of the political landscape and the future of the government in Bulgaria. The partnering parties in the government, the Citizens for European Development of Bulgaria, GERB party, and the coalition We Continue the Change Democratic Bulgaria, PPDB, have been in office since June. Now GERB demands changes in the government to continue to support it while the opposition is preparing a confidence vote in the parliament. What was notable and let's say maybe not new in these elections was that 3 symptoms of distrust appeared again towards the Bulgarian political system, namely the low turnout, the invalid ballots, and the fact that voters, almost 5% of the voters, took the opportunity to say they did not want to support anybody on the elections. In any case, changes in the political landscape in Bulgaria can send different signals about the country's image internationally, and this is why it's important to discuss these election results in a broader political and geopolitical context. What will be the impact of the election results on the government stability? Was the campaign actually a fight between Euro-Atlantic and pro-Russian forces in the country? What is ahead of the country? All these are questions for our speakers, our guest speakers today. I would like to introduce them. Boriana Dimitrova, who is a founder and managing partner at Alpha Research Bulgaria, and Vesela Cherneva, who is a deputy director and head of Sofia office of the European Council of Foreign Relations. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I would like to, without further ado, to give the floor to Boriana Dimitrova, who is going to present us like the big picture after the second round of the municipal elections in the country.
Thank you, Asya, and thank you for the invitation. Everybody, I think, know that it is very difficult to present the results from local elections because there are many different trends. Different trends on a very local level at the different municipalities, majority element, party weight and health. And that's why I really will try not to bother you with a lot of figures, but to present the main trends in the Bulgarian political landscape and to try to outline what is possible to expect after the elections. Especially these local elections, especially this, as already Asya mentioned, are very important because they can be read as a test of stability of the difficult governmental coalition between 2 until recently hostile political forces, the center-right GERB and the new coalition of PPDB, We Continue the Change and Democratic Bulgaria. Government has been created after 4 failed attempts and 4 early elections, and nobody is not sure if it will continue to govern or it will be a possibility of new elections. That's why these local elections can be read as a test of stability of the government. And another test can be read at these elections. It is the political weight and health of the new actors with opposite foreign policy views and strategies, pro-Western PPDB and the nationalist revival, who is a new political force for the local government. What do the general results from the elections show? First, very briefly about the voter turnout, Asya already mentioned that we can read here, and we have persistently low voter turnout. Here you can see the figure from 2019 and local elections. After that, the April parliamentary elections and the local elections at the end of October, and you can read the figure very low and sustainably low voter turnout. Even I have mentioned the turnout in Sofia, that usually we expect to have more active participation, more active citizens, but even in the big cities, especially in Sofia, we have this low turnout. And I would like just to add that both the low participation and multiple surveys that has been held during the last years show that, that we have an increasing erosion of trust in political parties, disappointment from the effectiveness of the political process, and alienation from democratic mechanism of civic participation.
Just to
how to say the bad news.
I apologize, just to make sure that the slides are also moving, and
yes, I will move now.
Okay.
But it was just about the voter turnout, and it was the bad news. Now I think we are moving to the to the better news. Here on this map, you can see the political weight of the parties after the elections. I will explain very briefly, because I will make the conclusions and not explain a lot of the map. This map shows who won, which party won the regional centers in
we cannot
Bulgaria,
see the map,
which are
though.
the most important.
We cannot see the map. Boriana, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Can we just, maybe there is a technical problem, but can we maybe see the map, because...
You can't see the map?
No, we cannot see the map, and some of our viewers actually signal that
I can't
there is a problem.
I shared the map.
We only see the presentation, PowerPoint presentation open, but maybe
I can't, because I move here I have the permit to share.
Yes, you do have the permit, and
yes, and
it
here
will be,
no.
It will be great if we can just try again.
No, I can't. I'm really sorry, because it is so that we shared screen, and
yes, now we can see it.
You
now
see?
We can see it.
Okay,
yes,
wonderful.
Perfect.
Okay. Just to, I already said that you can see who won the regional centers in Bulgaria, the most important cities in Bulgaria. In blue, you can see the cities which have been won by GERB, the ruling party, in the last 14 years. And briefly, GERB kept 13 regional centers and totally 106 municipalities. So the GERB preserved the first place, even if it's decreasing in his popularity and his weight. What is important that by the number of municipal councillors, by the number of vote casts, including losing Sofia and district in Sofia, because GERB will manage only 3 districts from 24 districts in Sofia. GERB is keeping the first place, but with diminishing popularity. What about PPDB? You can see in yellow. PPDB won the capital, Sofia, even if with very, very difficult victory, clean victory and photo finish, but other 3 cities, Varna, Pazarchik, Blagoevgrad, And what is important for PPDB is that they will have a district mayor in Sofia with 19 district mayors. PPDB make a breakthrough in 3 other cities, Varna, Pazardzhik, Blagoevgrad, and it is an opportunity to expand local influence. What is the problem for PPDB? You can see in the column when I have marked total municipalities, they have won only 7 municipalities in the country, including these 3 big cities. So they have very poor, very weak presentation in the country, except the large cities. What is a little bit about the other political forces? BSP slightly increases its result. You can see in red in northeast of Bulgaria. You can see BSP in red. They increase their results, especially in the small municipalities, but they won 4 big cities. Something which is interesting, and maybe some of you know that the final second round, the runoff for Sofia has not been as expected between the candidate of DBPP and GERB, but the runoff has been between the candidate of BSP and other left party, Mrs. Grigorova, and the candidate of PPDB. And it was, how to say, a debate if it is a red wave in Bulgaria and in Sofia. From all we can see, we have not this red anti-Western wave. It was just a protest vote against sometimes against the government and more against the status quo in Sofia for more than nearly 20 years. The conclusion that we have not this red anti-Western wave could be validated on the basis of the result of Nationalist Party revival. And you can see that they didn't win practically one municipality, one regional centers. They have only municipal councillors. Now I'm moving to the next slide. I'm not sure if you can see or not. You can see the next slide or not? Yes. Okay.
Hopefully our
Here we
viewers as
have
well.
some figures, and I will make my final conclusions on these figures. You can see the result of all the ballots, the absolute number of votes received on the national election in April this year, and on the municipal election for municipal councillors, because it is more clear when speaking about the weight of the political parties. And you can see the trends that I have just mentioned. We have decreasing power of GERB, but keeping the first place by number of municipalities won, by number of absolute ballots, and by number of seats in the municipal councils. We can see PPDB that they diminish their weight significantly, but they have some symbolic successes with the big cities and with the seats received. With BSP more or less the same. We have now other trends. What is very important, and I would like to mention here, it is the weight, the political effectiveness of MRF. It is the so-called Turkish party, the DPS MRF. they received a little bit less than 300,000 votes, and with 13% near to BSP and near to PPDB, they have 3 times more municipal councillors. That's why in our debates here in Bulgaria, usually they say, we are second political party in the country. By number of votes, their weight is almost equal to PPDB and BSP, but much more effective in the region where they have high support. For the other, and here again, Revival, we can see with 6% and a little bit less than 200 municipal councillors, they did not have a rise in the political landscape. What are the main conclusions? Here are the figures, and I will draw our main conclusions. I would say that the winners did not win as much they expected. GERB expected to win much more communities, and the losers did not lose as much as they feared. So, the local elections did not change dramatically the political landscape in Bulgaria. The elections confirmed the first place for the governmental coalition, with some disequilibrium between the partners, as I already mentioned. In this situation, no one political party has no interest to overthrow the government, because eventual new elections will not lead to a fundamentally new configuration. If we make a projection on the local elections of the future parliamentary election, it will not change dramatically the political configuration. In this framework, the most probable scenario is preservation of the government, at least until the spring, possibly with some increasing confrontation and some changes of some ministers, some ministerial seats. We can presume that the main priorities and key foreign policy engagements will be preserved, because the highest political weight and health are connected to the main partners of the governmental coalitions. They will continue to support the key foreign policy engagement, but here I would like to mention that given the scale of disinformation and hybrid campaign against the Euro-Atlantic orientation, these trends should be strengthened in Bulgaria, because the party which support this orientation are strong in the elections, but the public attitudes are not strong enough, and that's why I'm absolutely sure that they should be strengthened, because except the narrow pro-Western core in the big cities, for many other people, this orientation seems abstract without guarantees of economic prosperity and greater security. So for the moment, I do not think that there will be some big changes in the geopolitical, political orientation, and there are huge risks of the stability of the government. But finally, I would like to mention 3 red lights to watch out for, because they can have serious impact on the government and its foreign policy activities. First, the question, joining or not Schengen. The government needs some success, and Schengen in this agenda is very important. And the results to accede Schengen, to join Schengen or not, may have serious impact on the stability of the government. Second line with serious impact will be the reforms in the security services, especially State Agency for National Security, because all these reforms are related to the relationships between the government and the president. We already have some conflicts, some tensions between them, and it will be very important to follow how this reform will continue. And last but maybe not least, it is the development of the energy sector and fuel supplies, because it is another very important part of the Bulgarian foreign, and not only foreign, but internal policy. And here we can expect other points of conflicts that could influence the government stability. I will finish with my conclusion that regarding the local elections, they have confirmed the stability of the ruling coalition. We have not some nationalist wave presented by Revival and BSP. Their result are lower than these parties accepted. So the key geopolitical foreign political orientation of Bulgaria will be kept, but we have some red lines which we should monitor in the coming months, because it is possible to change and to influence the governmental stability.
Thank you. I would like to thank Boriana Dimitrova for the very interesting, insightful presentation and showing us the big picture after the second round of the municipal elections. And now I would like to give the floor to Vesela Cherneva, because one of the trends that and I think everybody who is with us today could see is that actually the progressive parties did not bring the significant change they promised, or let's say that they did win, but didn't win convincingly enough, or the way they expected. How do you explain this trend? And then maybe to zoom out and to see how this can be perceived from outside.
I will probably pick up on a couple of things that Boriana already mentioned. First of all, the fact that the municipal elections were actually brought some sort of a balance in terms of victory and defeat. There was no real victory and no real defeat. If we look at the four biggest cities in the country, they were divided 2 by 2, 2 for GERB and 2 for PPDB. Yet, I think the loss of Sofia by GERB was very significant, because as also Boriana mentioned, in the second round, GERB was not participating at all. So its defeat in Sofia was actually quite remarkable, although the second round was about to finish. But in the second round, there was no GERB participation at all. A colleague who is an economist by training and background has been working out some numbers, and he mentioned that 56% of the economic power in the country is now in the hands of PPDB mayors, meaning the most economically active part of the country has changed hands, so to say. With also the lessons of Budapest, Warsaw, and Istanbul in mind, I think this change of guard in Sofia is politically significant. Borisov himself knows this well, because he started as the mayor of Sofia. So I think Sofia, in a way, is the symbol of this declining trend of GERB which we have been seeing for the past couple of years. Now, because of this relative balance in terms of, splitting the big cities, in terms of GERBs kind of still holding the fort in the smaller municipalities, there is, of course, a certain stability that has brought to the government, additional stability, because if there was a very big winner, a very big loser, I think that would have made the continuation of this complicated coalition more difficult. In terms of the government, we have two very big goals that the parties that support the government have agreed upon. One is the Eurozone membership, for which, in a way, the budget that needs now to be approved, but also the negotiations by the finance ministry are key. And in that respect, I think this policy is going to continue with the view of Bulgaria becoming a member of the Eurozone on the 1st of January 25. And I think this goal is going to keep kind of the government afloat. And the next one is clearly Schengen. Schengen has several, the membership in Schengen has several dimensions. One is the constitutional reform. For the constitutional reform, there is a need for a big majority in parliament. And so this is why this kind of tie in the local elections was actually good enough to continue kind of the effort of bringing the constitutional changes through the parliament. The expectation is that by the 6th of December, the MPs will have introduced those changes in first reading, so that the Dutch elections, after they produce a parliament and a government, can also be followed by lifting of the Dutch veto based on the constitutional reform. I don't want to talk about Austria here, but if you like, we can do it later on, because I don't think that the Austrian objections have anything to do with Bulgaria or with Romania for that matter. They have, in my view, entirely domestic nature. And so basically the enlargement of Schengen in December to include Romania and Bulgaria will be, I think, also a matter of a political decision, but it will be key to the raison d'etre, if you will, of this government. And we can also discuss a little bit the alternatives, because this is, I think, important when we think about the electoral price that the kind of democratic parties are paying for this coalition. The fact that PPDB, having only 63 MPs in the parliament, have now a prime minister and a big portion of the ministers in this government, is actually also, in a way, a political miracle, but also it's a political liability, because a lot of their voters have accused them of going into coalition with the crooks, as it were. So how this political price is appreciated in Europe is going to be basically measured by the Schengen decision. In other words, should Bulgaria not get into Schengen, or at least not get a date for membership in Schengen by the end of this year, this may have a heavy toll on the democratic force in the parliament. Long story short, if you want my prognosis, I think the rotation will happen, meaning Ms. Gabriel is going to be the prime minister in March, and Mr. Denkov will step into the vice prime minister's role. However, anything beyond the agreed priorities that I just mentioned is going to continue being subject of daily negotiations, because there is no coalition agreement beyond those very few priorities. And it means that, you know, you can always look at the stability of this government as a glass half empty or glass half full. You can always say that it's fragile enough to stay on or stable enough to collapse. I mean, this is going to be the case as we go forward. And 2 words on the 2 big divisions in Europe that we also look at in Bulgaria. The first one is the division on the Russian war in Ukraine. This division has been very deep at the beginning of the war. With the time, it actually subsided, and more and more people basically oppose Putin and oppose the Russian action. And I think we're following, even though slowly, following the European trend. And maybe Boriana can say more about this if there is interest. But the fact is, and she mentioned that already, that the result of the pro-Russian parties in these last elections were actually rather disappointing from their perspective. So I think this is an important conclusion, that all of that kind of anti-Western Russophile voices who have been multiplying by the month in the last years have now actually not scored a real result. And the second division, which, as you know, is shaking Europe, let's say the division driven by the Israel war in Hamas, the let's say anti-Muslim slash anti-Zionist division. We do have a very complicated political. We have a very complicated attitude towards the political party of the Bulgarian Turks, DPS, and this is because of its all other characteristics, including its role in capturing the state and so on. But the fact is that having the Bulgarian Muslims represented in both in parliament and via the majority also in the government, but also in the local municipalities, I think has so far successfully prevented us from anti-Muslim kind of sentiments and tensions to the extent we can see this elsewhere. It is another question how this overrepresentation maybe of DPS in some policies, whether it's going to produce a backlash. But in any case, I don't see the projection of those divisions that we see elsewhere in Europe here in Bulgaria. That's from me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for this analysis. And there are a few very important questions that you touched upon. And I would like to remind our audience that everybody can join with a question. Please just write it in the chat, and then I will assist in asking our guest speakers. But I would like to use the opportunity of like you touching upon the role of or let's say this change when it comes to the economic centers and the role of PPDB as like progressive force, progressive coalition winning these economic centers, and ask Boriana to what extent this can actually have an impact on, let's say, the role of these forces at the national level. Can it have, let's say, can it help improving their image in the government? On the other hand, the fact that GERB is preserving many of its positions, but still lost Sofia, does it mean that actually we're going to see a decreasing role of this party in the national political landscape? And connected to this, because Vesela also pointed to the fact that there is a trend of having the nationalists / pro-Russian parties, let's say, on the losing side of this election. How do you explain this? I know these are three separate questions, but they're also connected because this is how the puzzle of Bulgarian politics looks like right now.
Okay, thank you, Asya. I will try to answer quickly, even if it's not so easy. First question. Does the fact that PPDB win very important cities and economic centers will improve their image? We should not forget that we are speaking about local elections. The mayors are very important, but more important than the mayors are the municipal council. That's why I have mentioned on my last slide the number of municipal councillors. I will give an example to our participants, to all of us, the municipal councils in Sofia. We have a mayor from PPDB. Mr. Tersiev is a new mayor of Sofia. But PPDB, they have no majority of municipal council. They should make some majority with GERB or the other party or BSP or the Blue Coalition, etc. I will not enter in detail, but it is the same situation is in Varna, in Pazarchik, and in Blagoevgrad. So what is very important, and it is crucial for their image, is what kind of coalition they will make in the municipal councils and how they will explain if they will be able to rule and to promote different policies, or all the time they will battle with the municipal councillors. You know that maybe the people who know a little bit more the Bulgarian political landscape know that the political price that Vesela already mentioned is very high because the core electorate don't like a lot the national coalition. And if now on the local level we will have the same kind of coalitions, we have two possibilities, and I'm not sure which one is will be the more realistic. The first one is to confirm this coalition on the national level, the local level, to prove the effectiveness of the new elected mayors to promote, to follow good local policies and to improve their image. But the second hypothesis is that it will be very difficult for them to really to rule these big cities because they will have a lot of obstacles from the municipal councillors, and it is possible even to decrease the image. Very difficult and not very easy to answer. Okay, there is a chance to improve the image, but it is risky because not only the mayor is the person who is ruling the cities. We have the figure, the institutional figure of the municipal councils. And second, about the pro-Russophile party, nationalist party. Usually these parties in the Bulgarian last year's political tradition, they are credited to express the voices of anti-Western, radical, revanchist peoples, but they are not credited to resolve the real problems of people. Everyday life and the municipal problems, the real problems are not resolved, are not linked to the Russophile and nationalist party. I think that this is a good news because we have on the ideological level, we have this emotional, revanchist, the feeling of the people who would like, who don't feel well in the economic background, post-COVID, etc., etc. But they do not credit this party to rule the country, to rule their place where the people are living. And that's why I think that it is like, how to say, to understand that we will not have the increasing, but it is possible. Let's be realist, not so optimistic, that it is possible to a new elections, let's say the European elections, they are coming next year, or the national election, to have a little bit higher result of revival. In any case, I do not expect a big wave on these parties.
I can see already that some of the participants have joined with questions, and I'm going to keep some of them for a little later, but please keep posting your questions. Now, based on what you said, I would like to maybe pass the floor to Vesela and ask. Now, we saw that the performance of the pro-Russian nationalist parties was not as successful as they expected in these elections. On the other hand, we have international observers following Bulgarian politics in the recent years through the lens of in which direction the country is going. Is it like pro-West? Is it going to, let's say, align more with pro-Russian forces? To what extent this dilemma is real? Is there like a real question here, or we should rather trust the recent election outcomes that show that Bulgaria is clearly positioning itself on the pro-Western side of the geopolitical scene?
I think a lot of that has to do with the war itself. So the fact that Russia is not this almighty power that can go and take Kiev in 3 days basically transpired quite clearly, and people realize that that actually things are much more complicated, and the world is more complicated. So I do not believe that this pro-Russian sentiment, even the one that is still there, which is again at much lower levels, is really based on some sort of, admiration for, I don't know, Russian economy or Russian military or Russian culture, or I think to a big extent it is actually about an anti-Western sentiment. It's the sentiment of you tell us that we don't have an alternative, but actually we do. And this search for an alternative, it has many reasons. It is based on asymmetric nature of the accession negotiations themselves. I mean, back 15 years ago, we remember quite well, it was you know, Brussels who would tell us what to do and where to quickly implement. And back then, we did it actually with quite a lot of energy and will, political will, but also societal will. I'm saying this because right now this is not at all the case in the Western Balkans, unfortunately. But it is the case, by the way, in places like Moldova and Ukraine. So this notion that we're being told what to do, the idea that the West is actually looking after its own interest and it does not concern us, or it doesn't care about us, this idea has been thriving and has been used by the Kremlin propaganda very, very actively, and I don't need to tell you about this. But I think what we saw lately is a consolidation also around NATO, especially here around the Black Sea. It is very clear that it is NATO that is our real protection. And I dare say that Bulgarians, being quite pragmatic, are actually looking for practical solutions to their problems, including to their general security problem. We still, of course, have politicians like the president, but also parts of the institutions, including the security services, as Boriana mentioned, who actually have been pushing this kind of pro-Russian stance, or have been basically trying to put in question the West's motivation in supporting Ukraine in the war, and in general, kind of whether Bulgaria's national interest does overlap with interest of the other EU member states. I think it is now more clear that it's better that we're part of the EU and NATO rather than not. And frankly, I don't think this is a dilemma, even though it may sound, if you look at social media and sometimes even at mainstream media, it may sound otherwise. But I think the result of these elections also shows that the general attitude is actually a much more reasonable one.
And talking about like the political stability, because Boriana mentioned that there is no, let's say, real threat, not immediate, but there are a couple of trends that we have to keep an eye on. Is there a clear understanding among the actors in the government that political stability is necessary? Because what we saw in the campaign during these elections was this constant questioning, or let's say, political actors forcing each other to admit that, you know, there is something wrong in the coalition or the partnership, the way they call it. So is there like clear political understanding that political stability is necessary, and also that without political stability there is a risk for the direction, the geopolitical direction of the country?
I think
maybe we can maybe just like give the floor for a second to
sure,
Boriana, and then
of
we'll
course.
continue. Yes. Boriana, can you hear us?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay. What to say? there is clear understanding that without keeping the government, there is not political stability. But at the same time, the parties would like not only to keep the government, but to keep their electorates. And that's why we saw during the pre-electoral campaign, we have heard a lot of very, very strong and hostile statements. Why? We should not forget that this coalition is difficult coalition made by the partners, the forced partners. They are not natural partners. And they all the time, the parties plays on two lines, to keep the electorate and to say, okay, the other are not so good, let's say, we are the better part, etc. At the same time, not to explode the government. And it is difficult political challenge, how to keep the electorate and to keep the government. It is not an easy, there is not an easy answer. I suppose that in each party, there are two wings. One wing who says, if we continue this coalition, we will lose electorate. And it is possible not only to lose electorate, but the Euro-Atlantic orientation. The other wing who says, okay, the result from on early elections will be not so different, and we should keep the government. For the moment, what we can hear from the political actors, official statements, is that there is an understanding that they must keep the coalition, but maybe, possibly, and I mentioned, with continuing confrontation in order to keep the core electorate. For the moment, I think that there is such understanding, but without some success for Schengen or other, it will be difficult to keep this coalition.
Vesela, please.
I agree with Boriana.
So, but we also talked about the political costs, and I think both of you mentioned that parties in the government, they pay certain political costs for participating in the government. And I would like to add one more political player, namely the party of the Bulgarian Turks, or DPS. To what extent this party actually plays a role in the future political calculations, because what we can see is that they preserve some or most of their positions in the country, while also having, let's say, their influence over the political process at the national level. And now to mention that maybe the confirmed leader of the movement in the next days, he's actually sanctioned under the Magnitsky law. So all this, how does it come together when it comes to political calculations, and how is it seen internationally, and how does it affect the image of Bulgaria? Whoever wants to answer this question, but Vesel, please, if you feel.
I mean, DPS is, of course, the party of the Bulgarian Turks, but it's also a very important economic player. Mr. Pevsky, who is the most prominent DPS leader right now, is on the Magnitsky list. He's said to be the reason for the collapse of a big Bulgarian bank not long ago, but also engaged in many parts of the economy. Look, on the other hand, DPS is a party which is part of the liberal political family in Europe for some reason. It's one of its MEPs is co-chair of ALDE. By the way, a very respected and a very good MEP, Mr. Ilhan Küçük. And so this is also a bit a European problem. I mean, how do you cope with all these parties who are tainted by corruption on a European level? The same, by the way, you can say also about GERB, which has been quite clearly the reason and the culprit of many of those failings, and still has had the support of the EPP, of the European People's Party on European level for many years. As we know, this is not a rarity in Europe, and this is why the Magnitsky list has such a big weight. Today, the European prosecutor, Ms. Kövesi, is in Sofia, and she explained quite clearly to media to what extent the Bulgarian prosecutor general has not been cooperating with the European Prosecution Office, has been basically busy with keeping umbrellas above politicians. She did not mention names, but there are a number of investigations ongoing. So I think all of that is a bit of an open question, how this aspect of Bulgaria's political corruption is going to evolve. But when you ask me about international standing, this question is much easier to be answered if you talk about the US, and much more difficult if you talk about Europe.
Okay, and Boriana, if you'd like to add.
I have nothing important to add. Vesela will describe the situation. We should know that DPS is one of the least transparent Bulgarian parties, and it is really very difficult to know and to follow the mechanism in these parties. And usually we try to guess, the analysts try to guess what happened, what will happen. And it is part of their activity, of different mechanism, sometimes very different from the other political parties. For the moment, I do not expect any serious changes. But the real sign, what will happen, we will see in February, when will be the conference, the national conference of DPS, because maybe the most important sign will be if Mr. Paevski will become, under Magnitsky, etc., will become the leader, the national leader of this party. In any case, he will be very important, visible, etc. But he will be the national leader, which poses some problems, even official problems to meet as a national leader this personality, or they will choose another personality like Mr. Küçük or the other. It will be a clear sign of how this party will continue to present itself, to develop on the Bulgarian scene. Not immediate changes, but what will be the strategy of this party?
And now, when we think about the next months and the upcoming European elections in 2024, all the challenges that you described, do you see any of the reforms that has been on the table that it's possible to advance in the next year? We talk about the need for judicial reform for years. We talk about the need for reform in the security sector, also the energy sector, and like all of this is of course part of the domestic discourse. But realistically, with this government, with all the problems and the new configurations that emerged from the local elections, do you see real chances for any of these reforms in the coming year?
Very briefly, what it is realistic to see, it is the constitutional reform. The problem with the constitutional reform is if there will be a deep and entire reform, or there will be made some compromises. It is the real. In any case, it is very important part, and I think that we will have this constitutional reform. It is a highest goal of PPDB, and it will be impossible to keep the government with this reform. I'm convinced with that. For the other reforms, they are slow. They are made step by step, and there are significant problems and contradictions between the coalition partners and between the parliament and the president, because speaking about some of the reforms, we need also the agreement of the president. So it will be really difficult to promote and to achieve big reformist steps. But in any case, if we have this constitutional reform and some changes in the regulatory body, which is also very important, it will be read as good steps forward.
And Vesela, if you would like to add something on this
question.
I
mean, as I said, everything that is that goes beyond the agreed goals is going to be negotiated case by case, which means that there will be a lot of horse trading in parliament, and some of the reforms will pass, others will not. A lot will depend on the configuration of interests, I guess. But to me, the reform of the judiciary and the system of rule of law is going to be a very important step. And to that, I would add also the Anti-Corruption Commission. It was the changes in that legislation were approved a couple of weeks ago. They now need to do the further kind of sub-legislation to that, so that that body can also be fairly independent and effective, and can start working properly very soon. There are a lot of necessary steps also on media, on, if you like, hybrid resilience, on money laundering, that have to do with this larger complex of, rules and principles. And I'm hoping that those efforts will be of interest of all parties, or at least it will be very difficult for some of them to say why they would not support those reforms. So I'm trying to be a cautious optimist on that front.
And when we talk about the region, because I'm also tempted to look at Bulgaria in the broader Balkan region, where there are also a lot of decisions and changes that we might expect, or at least we hope for good. There are questions in the chat, and I will start with one that is more related to the local elections first, and then we move to the Balkans. But what is the significance of the local election results to the investment climate in Bulgaria's major industrial sectors? I think we touched upon when we talked about, let's say, the expected problems or debates related to the energy sector, let's say, but maybe if either of you can engage with this question.
I'm happy to pick up the energy bit. Look, one of the big goals of this government has been to limit as much as possible the Russian influence in Bulgaria's energy sector. That started with basically the refusal to oblige to the new conditions by Gazprom already last year. It continued with generally diversifying Bulgaria's gas supply through the interconnector with Greece, but also it continued also with the efforts to substitute Russian nuclear fuel for the nuclear power plant. Now there are talks about new reactors in the Kozloduy power plant, which would be done with American technology, and I know that these talks are already underway to an extent, but the last piece of this conundrum would be basically Lukoil and what to do with this big refinery, which is in Russian hands. But I think this is going to be the last big piece of this energy bit. Lukoil has currently a derogation from the European Commission's regulation on sanctions. So this derogation is going to be valid until the end of 2024. And after that, the refinery will have to go over to non-Russian oil, and will have to basically change the standards of its produce. So whether the Lukoil will continue owning this refinery, I think, is an open question, and I think the government is basically trying to find a new to find interested parties for that one. But I think all in all, energy has become a case in point that in relatively short time you can limit Russian influence if there is enough political will.
And on this question, the relationship between politics and investments, Boriana, you mentioned that there will be challenges at the local level when it comes to the ambition of new mayors to,
this point,
let's say,
yes,
revive.
it is another very, very important conversation with our colleagues, the economists. But there are 2-3 points which are important. First, I would like to think, and I hope that the new mayors will be much more active on the economic sector, on the economic policies. We know that one other good news from the local elections are that some iconic feudal mayors left the political scene. And I really hope that the new mayors, active people with new modern views and visions, will try to organize more actively the economic life to ameliorate the economic situation in the regions. We know very well that Bulgaria is a country with a huge disproportion on the regional level, and the poorest region on the European level are in Bulgaria. So when we are speaking about the economic investment, there is a huge project of the World Bank in Bulgaria to develop so-called industrial park. and to use the industrial park to reinforce, to accelerate the economic development. A good case is the Trachea economic zone near to Plovdiv, when we saw in the last year really a big acceleration of the economic activities. Why it's important? It's important not only for the economic itself. The economic itself is important, but not only for itself. It is important to keep the young generation, to keep the active generation in the regions, to have more active people. And when we are speaking about the pro-Western, pro-democratic attitudes, we are speaking especially of the people who have their wife, their children, their education in their places, and they do not leave the country and go into the other countries. We can't imagine that only very poor and elderly generation will stay in Bulgaria, because usually on this type of people, the populistic waves are growing up. And that's why it's really very important to develop, to ameliorate the economic situation, to ameliorate the education in this region, to attract foreign direct investment, and to ameliorate and to diminish the distance between the region. It is one of the, how to say, the highest challenges to the local government. It's not just to read the local government and the local elections as a division between East and West, etc., but to ameliorate it, to change the regional landscape, which is very important to keep the people, to give them the chance to live in Bulgaria, to have their perspectives and their biography. And it is the real trend, really, to see the importance of the modernization, of the security, of the participation and accession to the EU. If not, it will be very abstract. And if the people can see on their places these benefits, it will confirm, not change, but confirm the situation.
There was as part of this campaign, there was a lot of talk about whether this was also like a geopolitical election, and we also discussed briefly in the beginning of this session. Surprisingly, though, unlike Ukraine, North Macedonia didn't appear as a topic in this election, but there is a question in our chat, and the question is to Vesela Cherneva. I'm going to read it because it's a little longer. Do the campaign and the election outcome give you hope or reveal some new constructive actors who could be involved in a meaningful confidence building between Bulgaria and North Macedonia? Mr. Petkov started something that was very soon after compromise and led to him even opening the Tsar Boris Cultural Club in Ohrid. Is there someone in the new landscape who can start anew and keep a course based on principled negotiations? Then which international structures can support such a process, and how exactly?
The topic of North Macedonia is, I would say, fortunately, not real topic in Bulgarian politics. Meaning it's not a problematic topic. It's not a topic that would bring out voters, which is why, and parties did try that issue on several successive elections and realized that it was not enough to make a difference. Even this nationalistic party VMRO did not succeed to basically enter in the parliament several times in a row, and I believe now it's more of a political dead man than anything else. So I think this is good news that that the bilateral relationship is not being instrumentalized by political actors anymore, simply because it doesn't bring much return. I think what this government is currently doing is the best that one can do at this point, namely to keep a low profile so that the Parliament of North Macedonia can pass the constitutional amendment that lists Bulgarians, among others, as a constitutive people in North Macedonia, which is part of the European framework that stipulates the start of accession negotiations with North Macedonia. In other words, the faster this happens, the better, obviously, and I think this is understood by everybody here. So I think the media environment on both sides has been very loud every time there has been a bilateral problem. I would only say that Petkov's government suffered at least 2 attempts to be toppled over the issue of North Macedonia. And finally, after it left, all of the work that was started on bilateral working groups, there were 5 intergovernmental working groups that were established and that had met at least 3 times each in the course of the first half a year of last year. All of that work was stopped and was basically frozen. Nothing was happening more on that front. Not only that, a lot of spats emerged, bilateral spats that were happily picked up by media. So I think the current, I would say, very low tone, very, very quiet kind of position of the Bulgarian government is the best service one can do to give enough space to the Macedonian government to proceed with the necessary changes. Unfortunately, it seems that there is that VMRO-DPMNE, which is the Macedonian version of that same group, has become really has found its identity in trying to stop those constitutional changes, so that it's a bit of a pat situation currently. But I think it's in the interest of both countries. And when we talk about some sort of a new kind of new relationship, it can be built only once this obstacle is out of the way.
Just one follow-up, because there was a part of the question related to the international, let's say, support, or let me just maybe rephrase it. Do you expect that in the context of the renewed interest in the enlargement policy, that Bulgaria and North Macedonia won't be just let by themselves, or let's say on their domestic political decisions, but there will be also some sort of like incentive for or facilitation or let's say more encouragement from the EU in this regard?
But there is no Bulgarian Macedonian process right now. It's an EU Macedonian process that is going on now. It's the EU which is working very closely with the Macedonian government in order to make those changes in the constitution happen, and in order to make it possible to start negotiations soon. Today, with the progress reports that the European Commission, yesterday, the European Commission published its progress reports, and it also produced the first principles of opening the first chapters with North Macedonia once those conditions are met. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was in the region, including in Skopje, only last week. So I think the EU is really making an effort to help North Macedonia get to the starting line, and I think again this is in the best interest of everybody in the region.
And staying with this question, Boriana, like as I said, we didn't see this as a part of the campaign, the local elections, simply because the topics were related to, let's say, the local life. However, North Macedonia has been a topic of domestic politics. To what extent, though, it is a dividing line? Because on one hand, we have the president. On the other hand, we have parties in the government, some of which, let's say, had some background on this issue. However, now they are in a different position because they're in power, and they also are keeping, let's say, quiet because of a different geopolitical situation. So to what extent the question of North Macedonia is still a dividing line in your view?
My impression, in my opinion, is that here the topic is used when we have huge political tensions. It is absolutely conjunctural, not only in Bulgaria, maybe in Macedonia as well, but I can say about Bulgaria. It has been artificially created because a lot of surveys in Bulgaria and Macedonia, including the European value surveys, show that the attitudes of the Bulgaria towards the Macedonian and vice versa were quite positive, and suddenly and politically created for narrow political objectives, for narrow political goals. They created a huge level of inacceptance between the two communities, the two countries. And when there is some political tension, this topic is on the table. It is discussed very, very loudly, and at that moment, the public opinion is polarized. When we have neutral or quiet political periods, we can't see the real tensions between the Bulgarian public and the Macedonian public. The people who are traveling on the borders, who are visiting Bulgaria, or who are doing business, they have not a real and on every day on roof tension regarding this topic, but it is possible, and it has been used to create a political confrontation, and it is on the ideological level, on the political level, related to the history, to the historic topics, but it is not a virtual, it is not a real everyday and real problem that is concerning the people. That's why I think that if the EU accession of Macedonia is going well, if there are not huge political tensions, this temporary confrontation will step by step going down, because it is artificially growing up, and after that everybody forget about this topic. Let's hope that the media, the public actors, the political actors will not use again, or if they use, it will not get these attitudes which has been present during the past 2 years.
And just to conclude our discussion, I would like to ask each of you within 1 minute to tell us what is your expectation in terms of best case scenario and worst case scenario for the upcoming year. As I mentioned, we have the European elections coming in the spring of 2024. And regarding the political stability in Bulgaria, what are, let's say, what is the positive outlook and the negative of each of you?
From my point of view, the best scenario is Bulgaria respected EU member, Bulgaria is Schengen, in Eurozone, and Bulgaria, a very active member of EU community with a stable government. Even if we have other elections, which is normal, but with preserving the European and Euro-Atlantic orientation of the country. The worst scenario, I think that it is impossible to be absolutely vice versa, but the worst scenario is unstable governments, weak governments, early elections, a lot of early elections, and very difficult coalitions. And in this unstable situation, to promote different interests which are not in favor of the Bulgarian population, of the economic development, and that will continue to increase the democratic alienation of people, and even the growing migration of young people from the country. That's why I think that we have two lines of stability and further European integration in Eurozone, in Schengen, or destabilization in this very difficult region, and having in mind the difficult geopolitical situation.
Thank you. And Vesela?
I think next year, especially under the kind of omen of the European Parliament elections, is going to be about the reordering of the EU and the reordering of Central and Eastern Europe. It already started with the Slovak and Polish elections. So the Slovak elections brought some support to Orban, which he is now going to not to be getting from Poland anymore. And I think the direction in which the Polish government the new Polish government is going to go is going to be important for how the EU is going to look like also beyond 24. In terms of security and defense, in terms of rule of law, in terms of internal solidarity. And so I think the big dilemma for Bulgaria will be whether it will stay on that course of further European integration and Euro-Atlantic integration, because I think NATO in this context is very important to be mentioned, and Bulgaria's more active participation in NATO is key. Or the country is going towards some sort of an urbanization, which is the alternative, I think, that Borisov has. And I think Radev, also the president, wouldn't shy away from that, which is having a majority in parliament, which is possible. GERB, DPS with the Socialist Party, and there is such people with the tacit support of Возрождение, of revival. This majority could produce a government that could go in this Orban-like direction, and would create a larger island of illiberalism in Europe. So I think in terms of our own immediate future, the stakes are high, but they're not less high when we look at the situation in Europe and how it is going to look like around the European and after the European elections next year.
Thank you. Thank you for this very insightful discussion, and I really hope that our audience today also, let's say, got a better understanding of not only the domestic political picture, but where Bulgaria is at the moment in terms of geopolitical position. I would like to thank our audience as well. Please keep in mind that we will continue our event series on Bulgaria, and we will continue following what is happening in the country in the upcoming year. You can find the discussion later on the YouTube channel of the GMF. Thank you once again, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for the initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for the invitation.